Using a single color of latex balloons creates an elegant balloon garland. This is my method for making it. Inflate two 11-inch balloons at the same time, anywhere between 7 and 10 inches in diameter. Let a little bit of air out and then press it against either the table or your torso to give them a nice round shape. Tie these together into a pair by wrapping the nozzles around twice and tying them in a knot. Make a second pair in the exact same way and then overlap them so that the nozzles touch in the center and twist one balloon from each of those pairs around each other, locking them into a quad. Repeat this step until you have 10 quads. Next, inflate a 17-inch balloon and an 11-inch balloon at the same time, making sure the large balloon is on the trigger side, so that way when the smaller balloon is full, you can continue to inflate the larger one. Round out both of these balloons and then you're going to tie them into a pair just like we did in the previous step. Make another pair of all 11-inch balloons and join it to our larger pair, creating a quad. Now to this, we're going to slip in another all 11-inch pair, making sure the nozzles all touch in the center and then twisting one balloon from this new pair around a balloon in our quad, and this will create a cluster of 6 balloons. This will make up the bulk of our garland, and I made 10 of these in total. To join the balloons into a garland, I'm using an empty 260 modeling balloon that I'm going to remove all the air out of and tie the end in a knot. Then tie the end of that 260 to a nozzle of one of our quads. This will be the beginning of our garland. Then you're going to take a cluster of 6 and nestle it right up against the center of that first quad. Pull the 260 up through the center of that cluster and wrap it around 2 of the balloons in a figure 8 pattern, joining the quad and the cluster together, giving the garland a little bit of a taper at the end. Next to this, I'm going to add on another cluster of 6. Pull the 260 up through the center of this cluster and wrap it around a couple of balloons. Now I want to pay attention to where I'm placing the larger balloons as I attach the clusters together. I want the large balloons to be evenly distributed between the top and the bottom of the garland. If one 260 balloon isn't long enough to tie your clusters together, you can always tie on another 260 to the end and continue on tying clusters. I joined 5 of my clusters of 6 end to end and then finished out this garland with a single quad. Tie the 260 in a knot to one of the nozzles of that final quad, leaving the tail long so we can use it to attach other balloons later on. Hold the garland up against the wall. This will be the center line of our finished design. Take note of where the garland is sitting on the wall, and then in 3 different places we're going to use a 260 balloon to anchor our garland to the wall. I'm going to tie my empty 260 balloon directly to the mat of my boxwood hedge wall. Simply tie it in a double knot, leaving the tail ends long to attach to our garland. If you're mounting your garland to drywall, you can always use a command hook or painter's tape to secure the 260 instead. Hold the garland against the wall, and then you're going to take the end of one of those 260s, pull it through the garland, and wrap it around 1 or 2 balloons that are directly in front of where it's mounted to the wall. Then you can tuck any remaining 260 tail into the garland and it'll disappear from sight. Repeat this step in all 3 locations down the garland so it's securely attached to the wall and it won't sag under the weight of all the extra balloons we're about to attach. I inflated a couple 24-inch balloons till they're nearly their full size and then tied an empty 260 balloon to their nozzle. I'm going to nestle these giant balloons above and below the main garland, securing them in place by stretching that 260 around 1 or 2 balloons that are right next to where I want to place those giant ones. I like adding these huge balloons before I add in any extra clusters. That way they look like they're well integrated into the garland and not just sitting on top looking like an afterthought. Once I've attached both of these large latex balloons, I also want to attach these large silver orbs. When you're inflating orbs, they're slightly different than your traditional mylar balloons. These orbs have a little bit of stretch in them, and that's how they go from being a cube shape into a sphere. Now, if you don't inflate them far enough, they're going to look crinkly like this, a traditional mylar balloon would. But if your edge looks like this, you need to add more air to it. I like to use a hand pump and slowly add air until those wrinkles disappear from all the seams. A properly inflated orb won't have any wrinkles and it will be a complete sphere. To attach the orbs to the garland, I'm going to take a 260 and lay it across the end of the nozzle, roll it up until it's against the body of the balloon, and then tie that 260 in a double knot. Then we can use the tails of that 260 to attach the orb to any of the balloons in our main garland. With both orbs in place, we can finally start filling out the garland with all of our clusters and quads. Nestle the remaining clusters above and below that main garland. If there are any convenient 260 tails from other balloons you've attached, you can always pull those down and wrap them in a figure 8 pattern around a couple of the balloons in the cluster you're trying to add. But if there isn't a convenient 260 available, you can always tie the end of a 260 around the nozzles of the cluster you're currently working on. Then stretch that 260 up into the balloons of the main garland, securing the two pieces together. As I continue to add clusters and quads, I want to make sure I'm nestling those around the larger balloons so there aren't any large holes or gaps next to those big balloons, and it all looks like one cohesive unit. With the large elements in place, it's time to focus on the small elements. I'm going to make a mini balloon garland out of these 5-inch balloons. You could use a hand pump, or I'm using a timed pump to inflate all of my 5-inch balloons to 4 inches in diameter. This allows me to quickly and efficiently fill all of these balloons to the exact same size before tying them into pairs. I'm going to attach my first pair to the end of an empty 260 balloon by tying the nozzle and the 260 in a knot. Set this pair down on a table and then grab a second one of the exact same size and layer it right on top of that first one, but rotate it at a 90-degree angle so that it looks like an X. Pull the 260 balloon up through the center of that new pair, wrap it around one of the balloons, and then layer on another pair rotated back to the original position. You're going to alternate your pairs back and forth in this manner, wrapping the 260 around as you go, making sure that when you add the pair, they're nice and snug against the pair below it so that the balloons touch. I'm going to continue tying on pairs until I have 12 pairs all joined together into a mini garland. Now you could tie as many of these balloons together as you like into your garlands. I just found it was super convenient to do either 12 or 13 pairs so I could split a bag of 50 count balloons into 2 mini garlands. Then I'm going to tie the 260 to the nozzles of that final pair, leaving that 260 tail long so I can use it to secure my mini garland to my main garland. I like to tuck the end of my mini garlands between balloons and then curve it up and around a few balloons and tuck the other end either behind the main garland or between some more balloons. I feel like this makes the mini garlands look like they're weaving in and out of the main garland design. Finally, I'm going to sprinkle around some of these smaller silver orbs to even out the silver accents of this balloon garland. All of these important details come together to create a gorgeous organic Luxe balloon garland. If you enjoyed this project, you should check out this video. And until the next time, remember, stay creative, everybody.